I've met some interesting people in the last few decades. One of those very special people I met was a woman named Nadia McCaffrey. When I met her, she was just going through a period where she was grieving the loss of her son Patrick, who was killed in the war on terrorism. I believe in Iraq or Afghanistan, one of those two places. He was California National Guard, and there was a big investigation on his death and how he died and if he was killed by the people that he was helping or whatever. But she was really involved with that. And she herself was much deeper than that process because she was one of these people that had two near-death experiences when she was younger. She was born in France. She married an American GI, so she had this French accent when you talked to her. And she was wearing all black when I met her, and that was like her signature for several years, all black, and she had blonde hair with this beautiful French accent. And she was on this campaign, this crusade, this whatever you want to call it, where she was helping fellow veterans out there. And so that's how I got involved with her. She had a nonprofit that was finding housing to take care of these young veterans when they come back and they were having problems with PTSD or whatever, and they couldn't assimilate back into society. And she was getting properties in New York and Minnesota and different places where they could come in, spend several months, whatever they needed, get their life together, get some counseling and move on. And she just recently, at this time, come into some property in the Russian River area up by Sebastopol in Northern California. And I've been working with her that as her chaplain for her foundation. We were trying to talk to people in there into allowing us to have this venture up there. In the process of doing that, we had to travel to Humboldt County, way up along the coast, California, where the big redwoods are at. And there was a group of veterans up there that she wanted to talk to that were working on projects similar. And she was going to go up there. At the time, she lived in Tracy, California, which was about 45, 50 minutes south of me. And she was going to have to drive right by my house on her way up. So I said, "Oh, why don't I go with you?" Because I was thinking that's a long drive. It was going to be an 8-hour drive, and she was going to be all alone, and I could give her some support and help her with this project, meeting these people. So she picked me up, and we had 8 hours together driving north. And during this time, I really got to know a lot about her. She told me about her two near-death experiences in France when she was young. And the first one happened when she was a small child and she was wandering through the fields in that part of France where she lived. It was kind of like a farm area, vineyards or something. And there was I believe it was an asp, a poisonous snake that was in this tall grass. And she found herself getting bit. And her parents found her. They brought her back to the house, and she was really struggling between life and death. And I believe she went into a coma even. And at one point, she actually passed away, and she had one of those profound near-death experiences where you go through the tunnel, there's light, you're loved beyond the greatest thing, and truly wonderful, wonderful experience. And if anybody's really interested in that, she has several NDV videos out where she talks about that in great detail. So I'm going to not talk about that here. But the fact was, a few years later, when she got older, she remembered how wonderful that was. And she was despondent because she wanted to go back to that happy place, that place where she felt loved and everything. And she attempted suicide and didn't have such a great experience as she had the first time. But basically, she was sent back. And she didn't remember a lot about it, but she knew she had a mission. She had a purpose, a much greater purpose to come back. And so she was sharing these things at a really deep level. And then she started talking about all these spiritually transformative experiences and unique paranormal things that happened to her all the time, and how she learned about her son's death, which was quite beyond chance, all the things that happened in her life and everything. So we dealt with that, and then she told me about the anniversary of her son's death, Patrick. And she was in her house, and she looks out in her backyard, and there's this big owl. I think it was I don't know. I think it was a white owl. It was some kind of owl. It was sitting out there staring at her, and it spent most of the morning and the day with her. And she knew that that was her son Patrick coming back to let her know she was okay. This owl. I mean, she just didn't normally have an owl sitting in her backyard looking at her in the daytime. So she opened up that door about owls. And so I started telling her about all my owl experiences and how the owl to me was a personal symbolic totem, spiritual totem of some kind, where I needed a spiritual boost of energy, or I needed greater faith, or I needed to know I was on the right track, or I needed answers or something. I needed support of some kind spiritually, that an owl would manifest itself in my presence somehow. A real owl, a flying owl, a stuffed owl, a toy owl, a picture of an owl on TV, all sorts of owls. And so I was telling her about that, and I was telling her about the time that I was driving down the road from my friend's house up in Jackson, California, and I'm leaving this little mini reunion, and this owl comes right out of the sky and right out in front of the hood of my truck, and takes me all down this winding road as I went down towards Stockton. And that wasn't the first time that's happened. Same thing happened when I left Self-Realization Fellowship, coming back to Northern California, coming down the big pass there on Highway 5 into the valley. And owl did the same thing, led me down there. And this is frequent. So I'm telling her all these stories, and I'm telling her about when I went to Self-Realization Fellowship Men's Ashram a few years prior to that with one of my friends, a Vietnam veteran named Lee. And I'm telling him about all these owls, and this owl did that, and that owl did that. And I was telling him about when I had a friend commit suicide. We went to the funeral, memorial service, me and several friends from high school. And everybody was going into this church. But on top of this church was a steeple. And I look up there at the steeple, and there are two owls sitting on top of the church, mating, having sex in broad daylight. This was like about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I show my friends, so I wasn't crazy. I mean, we're looking at it. And then I started thinking, well, maybe this is my friend's way of saying everything's okay, because mating, sexual things like that is basically a symbolic picture about life regenerating and creating a new life and going on. So we thought that was a good omen. So I was telling her that story, and I went on and on about dozens of stories of owls and how I go to people's places and there's owls in their house. They got ceramic owls on the shelves, or owls, photos or paintings or whatever. And I found that over the years, the people that I've drawn closest to and gotten inspiration from, or was able to help better, were fellow owl people that have had experiences with me with owls or on their own. So that was our conversation for about 8 hours in a crazy way. We were just basically talking about owls. And anyway, we stopped at a restaurant and I ate something in a restaurant that didn't agree with me, and I started getting really sick on our final leg as we were crossing towards the ocean, going over from the Mount Shasta area, cutting across. We end up getting to this woman's house that we were going to stay at, and she wasn't home when we got there, and we got a note or text or something saying that the key was available and told us where it was at. And so we opened up her place, and we went inside, unlocked it, went inside, and there, sitting there right in the kitchen, is all these knickknacks with owls, owl knickknacks, and the towels, the kitchen towels all had owls on them, images of owls. And there was a picture of an owl in one another room and everything. We looked at each other and said, yeah, this is the right house for us to stay at for this meeting. It should go well. But I started getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and we were having a dinner that evening, and she was going to talk, and I was going to talk, and I was going to be there as a chaplain. But I was so sick, I couldn't get away from the toilet. I mean, between throwing up and everything else, I wasn't fit for public presentations at all. And so reluctantly, after traveling all that time up there, making all that trouble to get there, I wasn't able to go. And so she left, and the friend that came back that owned the house, they left. And they came home that night. Now, when she left, she had this big blow up a photo of her son, probably 3 feet by 2 feet, maybe bigger than that, poster size. And when she would give public talks, everything, she'd put it on an easel or put it on the table or put it on display someplace. So she always had her son with her. And when she was talking about her son, Patrick was there. And this was really special. So she carried that with her, and it meant a lot. And when she got back, she went to bed. Next day, I'm waking up, I'm sleeping on the sofa, and I hear all this commotion going on, and she's really upset. And her and the lady that owned the house were just tearing the house apart, looking for the photo, and they're going out, looking in the car and back and forth. And so I inquired what was going on, and it seems like in the process of leaving the dinner that night, the night before, that her photo that she dragged around and everything, it's a big thing. I mean, you just don't forget it. But she didn't have it with her when she got up that morning. She couldn't find it. She thought she brought it home, but now she was worried, and they were deciding that after they looked at the entire house and searched the car, that they were going to drive back to the hall where they had this meeting and find somebody to open it up and inquire and look inside and search. But I looked at her and I said, no, it's here. She says, no, we just looked the entire house. We just came out of the bedroom, we checked there, we checked the kitchen. It is not here. And I said, look one more time. So Nadia, reluctantly, but believing, okay, maybe there's something here. So she goes back into the bedroom. When she walks into the bedroom, there laying on the floor next to the bed that she was sleeping in, wide open, you could see it. There was a photo of her son face up looking at her. So she was wildly going on. She couldn't find it, but the photo itself was there the whole time. But she didn't see it, and she walked over that same very place, looked under the bed, looked on the bed. Yet when she went back in, there it was on the floor. And then she got very overcome with emotion, and I could see that she had a tear in her eye and everything. And because not only was it special, this photo, but this day itself was special, because on this morning, this was the morning of her son's birthday. So she felt that her son was with her. And I said, okay, this is a special moment. Let's take that photo. Let's go out in the patio. They had a beautiful patio outside. And it was early in the morning, and it had these wind chimes, and it's just a nice open patio. And I took it and I set it up, and we had some candles and some incense. And I said, okay, here's why I'm here. I'm going to do a ceremony. We're going to pray together and wish happy birthday to your son, Patrick. And that's what we did. We prayed. I believe we might even sang happy birthday to Patrick. And just as we finished, several church bells in the town started ringing. Apparently it was the top of the hour or something. We didn't know. We didn't plan it that way. But as soon as we finished, I mean, within 2-3 seconds after we finished, we heard all these beautiful church bells ringing, just ringing gloriously. And then, if that wasn't enough, all of a sudden there was this big gush of wind. It went from totally still, beautiful morning, not a breeze, to this gush of wind comes through and knocks his pitcher down. And it's laying there on the ground. And all the wind chimes in the yard, they all start chiming and ringing, and we're just looking at each other. And we picked up the photo. I handed it back to her, and she was holding on to it. And then just as suddenly as the wind started, it stopped. When she had her hands back on the photo on her son's birthday, the wind subsided. The chimes stopped. It got totally silent and quiet. She looked at me, I looked at her, and we both were a little teary. And we both knew that her son had been there for her and was letting her know.